I didn't know it. Kubo. I mean, it was part African. Oh, Japanese.
Yeah,
Okay,
Japanese. Yeah.
got you.
Japanese.
Is that your whole name?
What's that?
Kiyo Kubo.
Actually, my full name is Kiyo Kaz, but yeah, Kiyo Kubo is my.
Where you get the Kubo from, partner?
That's the last name. That's my last name.
That's a beautiful name, man. It's
Kiyo
kind
Kaz.
of sexy.
Kaz. Yeah.
No,
Is that with the K cause?
Yep. KIYLKAZU actually.
huh.
But it's interesting because like when you look at my, it's just the way that essentially like all the government bureaucracies over the years have like spelled or misspelled my name. Like,
Yeah.
So
I have it on like different. It's spelled a lot of different ways on like different passports and birth certificates and like it's like literally.
Well, come on, man. Hold that. Strap it in, man, and let's go on. Let's go to work. I mean, come on. You gonna fly this plane? Let's go and let's get it down.
Stay on that mic.
yes, sir.
And pull it up to you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we back. Is we back? Y'all let me know when we back. Well, we're back. And again, folks, welcome to this episode of Black Beat Podcast. Hey, Jay, when we went away there, I understand we had a guest that just happened to pop into the studio today.
Indeed, he did.
Well, who is that, man? What we working with today?
Today we're working with Kiyo Kubo.
Kiyo Kubo.
Yes.
Man, what a sexy name, man. That's a heck of a name, man. Tell us a little bit about this cat, man.
Yeah, of course. Kiyo Kubo is the CEO and co-founder of Kuto, an app that helps local small businesses by saving them money on credit card and bank fees, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Kiyo is an app developer and has been working on launching startups, including Meridian, Spotlight Mobile, and Voda, since arriving in Portland fresh out of Cornell University in 2001.
Oh, Cornell. Mm-hmm. You know, man, there was a time when they were actually the first people that recruited me. I wound up going to Rutgers, right? But Cornell, I was going to go to, and actually I was going to be a crew kind of guy. I like to row boats. And I was thinking about doing that, but instead football just took it over, I guess, because I started thinking that I would just be a one-sided lobster if I got in that boat, at 175 pounds. But now that I figured, well, I didn't. Then I get to be 230 and I can run things down. But yeah, man, welcome to the show, big guy. Cornell. Now I understand where the Kutos. There was a day back in the day. People used to walk up to you and go, "Much kudos to you." You remember that?
That's K-U-D.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, man, welcome to the show today, man.
Same, man.
But that is a heck of a name. So, Kubo, and then Kuto is the name of your app.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it, man. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Well, I mean,
Kiyo.
the name was the name Kudo. We spent a very long time trying to come up with a name. I hate naming things, and like my wife has named both of my children, and I'm not a person to name things. But we were just trying to come up with something, and one of our advisors was like, "What about Kubo, like my last name?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "No." And so we were kind of trying to figure out why we liked that word, Kubo. It has sort of a nice feel, I guess.
Yeah.
It rhymes with CEO. Maybe that's it.
Well, it has this nice sort of I think the strong
Kiyo
consonant
Kubo,
start, and then
CEO.
it kind of has a nice finish with the O. So we were trying to think of words that had sort of a similar kind of feel, I guess.
Right on, man.
So like
at the end of the
Venmo?
day, I guess at the end of the day, though, Kudo was basically we could buy Kudo.app, and so it was like, okay, domain that was available.
That's the first step.
Yeah, getting the domain is sort of number one. So that's how it ended up with that, and then it has nice connotations because it sounds like kudos, right? Like
Right on,
to
okay.
you for doing
Well,
something.
okay, tell us a little bit about this app, man, and what you're doing these days with this product.
Yeah, we started it. We had been working on banking technology for several years, and when the pandemic hit, we were just about to launch a sort of a travel expense kind of credit card, and it was March of 2020, and that starting a travel expense credit card didn't seem like a particularly good idea.
Bad timing, huh?
Yeah, timing's everything. But at the same time, there were I had some friends who had restaurants and bars and stuff, and they were just getting hammered because specifically, they chose not to hold a credit card. So every time they would swipe the credit card, they'd have to pay the percentage plus the per transaction fee.
So it costs more than it's worth.
Exactly. So they're paying, on a $6 beer, they're paying, 10 to 25 cents per swipe of the credit card
And that
plus
adds
the
up.
percentage.
Okay.
So which is, you're getting close to 10% you're paying. And the reality, the way that their margins work, they were paying more money in credit card fees than for the beer itself.
Wow.
So it was like, man, that's brutal, and we're in 2020 and, Visa and MasterCard do amazing things in the 90s, before the internet, essentially. And now we have the ability to get your balance in real time. We have the ability to pull money out of your bank account in real time, just using standard features of the internet, essentially, with Plaid and Stripe. And you see this, being used with Square and Venmo and Zelle and all these things. But like, the fact that everybody that uses credit cards is very convenient because it's everyone has them, but the underlying technology that runs them is it's very, very impressive, but it's not unique anymore, right? The internet basically does all those things for us, so we could essentially provide the same features without paying all of the fees that you pay when you swipe.
So let me get this right, Kiyo. I mean, you a cat come out of Cornell, Ivy League, right? Well, I don't know if they Ivy League anymore, but hey,
A lot of Ivy.
yeah. And so you sitting in your restaurant with your partners, and you somehow or another, how'd this idea just come up, man? I mean, you just thinking this kind of stuff? Is this a world you live in constantly when you're looking at something like, I mean, how does a person just come up with an idea like this?
I think it's, when you are, it's like taking the red or the blue pill. Like when you see when you kind of see what's happening underneath, behind the scenes on a lot of things, you see the sort of the stuff, the face of everything, and you're like, but the way that it works behind the scenes is actually, like it's not that complicated, or it's easily.
And he's the Matrix, so it's easy to him.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that's what I mean. It's like when you're kind of, it's not rocket science once you kind of see how things are working behind the scenes. It's not as magical. Oftentimes with technology, people just are like, oh, it's magic or whatever,
Gotcha.
And I think Steve Jobs says something along the lines like, if it's good technology is magic.
Yeah. I'm with you, but that technology game right now is just going crazy, man.
Yeah.
The bots and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I was just looking at a piece that CNN was doing this morning on some of this AI. This and the stuff that we've been looking at over the years, man. I tell you, that augmented reality and all that stuff, they just said it's just gone crazy, man.
Yeah.
But for you and your company, you're looking at saving businesses money. Is that what I'm hearing? Primarily is the focus?
That was where we started. So we realized that a lot of the sort of underlying sort of fundamental technology we could, anyone could use modern internet technologies and build solutions that would essentially allow you to save the money that you're paying in credit card swipe fees. And when you swipe a credit card, there's your issuing bank, there's the merchant bank, there's your rewards program, there's your point of sale, there's the merchant processor fees, there's like six.
Everybody gets a piece.
Yeah,
of it.
everyone's getting a piece.
You just
of that.
don't know it.
Exactly.
In general,
and
right?
it's not all of those parties are necessary anymore. Like for example, when you one of the reasons behind the merchant bank fee is that when you swipe a credit card, the money goes to the merchant sort of the next day, and I don't have to pay my credit card bill for like 60 days, right?
Right.
So they're essentially lending me money for 60 days
Without my permission.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that money then somebody has to pay for that. So they're basically charging the merchants for that lending of the money.
Right.
But what's funny about that is the same thing happens, and there's new rules based on the Durbin Amendment and so forth. But like, if you're a small bank and you swipe a debit card and it's run over the Visa MasterCard rails, they're still charging you that fee, even though they're not lending any money to you.
Gotcha.
Right? So there are starts to say they're still charging the merchant that fee.
Right.
And the reason why they're allowed to charge that merchant that fee is because when people pay with credit cards, they pay a lot more money. People who use credit cards tend to spend a lot more money than people who pay with cash.
Yeah.
It's same exact person, like same exact profile of a human being who pays with cash and pays with credit card. They pay more when they pay with a credit card. So in the 50s, they would show up at merchants and they'd have this big, not PowerPoint, I don't know what they used in the 50s, but like slide deck of some kind to show the merchants, like, look how much money the average credit card user spends versus the average cash user.
We used flashcards in the 50s.
Okay, they use the flashcards of all the money. And so merchants were like, I know it costs an extra 4%, but like the amount of money you make is so much dramatically higher. And so all that stuff sort of came together, and merchants paid these large fees and then, over time, Visa was like, well, let's have other people sell our product for us. And then Square came in, and we're like, we're just going to consolidate this into one thing, and we'll have a set fee. And all those things came together to end up where you are today, where you have these very high fees. And so what we realized we could essentially get around all of that stuff just with, like I said, modern secure banking technologies on the internet.
Cool.
And so we put that out there, but what we learned as we were doing this was that saving fees is nice, but the real value that we can provide is sort of getting you new customers.
Yeah.
Getting you new customers and getting your customers to come back more often.
And listening to you and you being here, what a lot of people don't know is that there's this huge amount of money spent in the black community every day. But a lot of people will bypass us because they think, oh, no, there's crime and this.
Yeah, there's no buying power there, no money.
$1.5 billion a day spent in the black community at least. And if people just market it and stop assuming that just because we look like we look and people say whatever they say, we know how to spend money if we don't know how to do nothing else.
I did want to ask you about because you talked a lot about like the incentive for small businesses. Can you talk a little bit more about like what does like a customer get from using your app?
Yeah, well, so in the early days, and this is sort of a funny thing with the last couple of years have been so chaotic in terms of, I mean, you see this right now with Amazon thought everyone's going to just use the internet now to buy everything.
Yeah.
And they hired all these people.
Yeah.
They're 100% larger than they were 3 years ago.
Right.
And so, but that hasn't happened, right? People are going back. The pandemic has waned.
Yeah.
And in the early days when we started, it was like, look, you can save your favorite coffee shop 70% what they're currently paying, right?
Okay.
And that was sort of enough to get people to do the thing. And now it has become less so, right? People are like, well, what's in it for me, right? And that's kind of, again, going back to what we have learned is that like saving the money is nice, but what's really great is getting new customers, getting repeat customers. And so what we've sort of realized is that, look, we're saving all this money over here. Let's just take that money that you're saving, and instead of sending it off to New York or Square or whatever, let's just give it back to the people in the community, right? So if I come in and I pay with a credit card, I swipe my card, and then the money just evaporates, leaves the community, it heads out to New York or whatever. And if I pay with Kuto, that fee essentially, instead of leaving the community, stays in the community and comes back to me as the consumer.
When I think about the topic that is about driving customers, it's sort of when we look at the bigger picture of BIPOC businesses in our communities, it's one of the biggest issues is, when you find well-established white business communities, right? Right now, if you go over to Bend, you go over to Vancouver, you go into any of these newer designed white meccas, there's no problem with getting customers coming in and out of those businesses. But we find when we got these small mom pods and basically urban communities, it's really hard to get white people to come into these businesses. And so it's kind of interesting, this conversation. So whatever drives traffic into anything, I'm open to take a look at, because believe me, in most of these cases, a lot of the problem is that we can't seem to get the reverse. Blacks and BIPOC people will go into white businesses, but we seem to be having a difficulty to get that to be reciprocal.
Yeah.
So anything that could help out. But that's a real good question. So some of the people don't trust apps, okay? So, and especially with us in the neighborhoods and you're trying to support and all that, we still got a deficiency, man. I mean, about people even climbing up on PCs. I mean, we still at less than a 50%.
We're not even on the highway. We need to be on the highway.
So how do we begin to look at, I mean, within this system, does this system sort of help encourage that kind of momentum to get people more involved in these types of things? I would assume it would.
One of the things we learned early on was that if the business, if the business vouches for it, then the consumer will be like, well, they think it's okay, so I'll do it. And we were a little surprised by that. I think the other thing is just the overall place where we are in history. Like, people are really used to using Venmo. They're used to using Cash App. They're used to using Mint. They're used to using all
those other things,
these
right?
services that essentially use the same tools that we use. We use Plaid, for example, to get bank information. And all the banks have sort of come on board with this sort of modern way of allowing third-party access. So all the things we're doing are, very standard.
Okay, right on.
American Express uses the same tools we use. But yeah, just people in general have gotten to a place where they're used to doing this thing, and then we find that when the business tells you, hey, this thing is okay, then people will also feel more comfort.
So what other incentives do you offer the consumer?
Yeah, so we essentially, like, number one, you get those fees come back to you, right? Okay. Instead of essentially leaving the community. The other thing that we're focused on is helping. It's really, really easy, right? So it's actually faster than other ways of paying. And then we have a whole promotional sort of part of the app. So businesses, and I think it comes down to the fact that we built this. The core started as payments, which means that we can essentially track when the transaction happens. And so businesses are wanting to attract new customers they've never seen before. And when you make a payment with Kuto, we know that you made a payment, so businesses can feel comfortable making really attractive promotions and know that they're only going to go to people who haven't been there before, essentially.
Okay.
They're not giving their regulars 50% off, for example.
So Kubo, I want you, Jarrell. Tell me what your understanding is about how a person would get started. In your understanding of this, how does this all work in your understanding about what it is that they do? Do you download an app? Do you get a card? What is this? How does this all work in your mind?
Well, the typical process, like if I'm a customer, is I download an app and then I'll put my bank information into the app, so that I can do the payments. And then if it's doing what I'm thinking, it's like you have like your list. You have like on the app your list of businesses that you can shop with, or like if you go to the business, there'll probably be like a QR code or something like that where you can scan to pay or something like that. So like for me, like the way I'm thinking about it is, it seems like very effortless.
Yeah.
When you're going to make those payments and transactions.
Well, it sounded effortless to him, but it sounded pretty complicated to me. How about you, Harrison, over there? You know,
I was just from him. It started trying to explain it.
You know, it's like it's how your ear is listening for it. Because Jarrell, you under 30 years old. Harrison, you over 50. So I mean, but the ear is how it's like. Well, look here, man. I didn't want to out you. You know, if I gave you a little bit less.
70.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
But I think just as well as Jarrell, he just don't know it.
Well, I didn't say you didn't think as well as it, but
I believe you do.
But I'm real interested in how can you promote this in this particular community? Like, what do you know about this community besides what you read? Besides being in here, are you comfortable where you are right now?
I'm comfortable, yeah.
What do you know about the hood? Hello.
Well, that's why I'm here, right?
To know about the hood?
Well, no, it's because
to add something to it, I would assume.
Yeah, we found we've been working with so many different communities. You know, we're working with like Umatilla, like tiny town in Central Oregon. We're working with the city of Portland, right? Big metropolitan area. Working with Corvallis, Eugene. Like we're working with all these different communities, and what we're finding is that they're not that different from each other, you know. Like they're very different, right? But they all want to support their local businesses. They all want to keep money within the community. Yeah, man. They all want to, you know, they all have regulars. They all have people that they see every day, and you know, people are very friendly to other people. I think as a rule, you know?
Really.
Yeah, I think so.
What rule are you talking about?
I think it's been really fascinating in this business because we get, you know, transactions come through constantly, right? And we have lots of systems in place to.
That's the kind of business you want. Transactions coming through constantly.
You got like a long-term plan, short-term, long-term plan? Or
well, maybe not even that, Harrison, to get to that place so quick. But I mean, talk about the trend of digital currency. Mm-hmm. What's going on with that? I mean, really, are we behind the times, catching up with the times? What's your thoughts about?
You mean with like Bitcoin?
All of it. I mean, everything's going on to the card. Very limited use of cash most of the time. Always
Bitcoin
some
especially.
type of app. Yeah, but that was a floundering deal for a while there. So I'm not even going to even look at that. If it's recovering, do you think it's recovering? Do you think Bitcoin will recover?
Oh man, man, Bitcoin is one of those things that like I said, it's like being in the Matrix. Like when you know what's going on under the covers, you're like, yeah, there's nothing there. It's not. There's a underlying technology called like blockchain, which has very useful purposes. I think probably one of the best examples of using that would be something like a GitHub, like something where you're tracking changes over time across, and you want to have high fault tolerance. For financial transactions, it's quite poor at that. Like when we're doing the things that we're doing every day. You're talking about making an update to literally millions and millions of devices when I go in and make a $2 purchase for a soda or something. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so like Bitcoin it was sort of conceived as this sort of stateless currency. And I think that actually is a valuable it's a valuable thing, especially when you start thinking about, I mean, there's some really weird edge cases like if you're thinking about how, imagine that the state fails, right? And all your money is in U.S. dollars, we'll say.
Yeah.
If the U.S. government were to
major issue.
Yeah, have some issues. As a sort of rule, you generally want to be diversified, right? So it's like, okay, do I buy
commodities?
Yeah, do I buy gold, right?
Yeah.
So now I might have a whole briefcase of gold that I have to carry with me.
A little heavy, yeah.
So like that kind of thing where you're trying to figure out, and so you're like, okay, maybe we should diversify into foreign currencies. So what is a state that will stay, active if the U.S. government fails? Is it Australian, dollars or what? And you start to try to figure out, and that's where I start to think, well, something like Bitcoin makes sense, right? It's a stateless currency. It doesn't depend upon whether this government is. And I'm not by any means a conspiracy theorist. I don't think that
we all got a little bit of conspiracy in us.
I do believe in diversification of assets. So that's where it feels like a valuable thing. However, it's so crazy volatile that it's a terrible place to put like your nest egg.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing about digital currency is that the U.S. dollar says right on it, like the property of the United States government, right?
Right, sure do.
And the only reason why, if I hand you a dollar, you feel comfortable accepting that is because ultimately you can take that dollar and you can take it to the Fed and say, hey, give me my gold for this dollar, right?
Right.
Now that
used to be. It don't happen no more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's backed by the full faith and trust of the United States government.
Yeah, and in God we trust is on there too.
Yeah. But ultimately there is a buyer of that that asset. So you know that it will have value. With Bitcoin, there is no ultimate buyer, right? It's only if I can convince Jarrell to buy it from me that it has any value.
It has value, yeah.
And so you end up with this situation where if you take a 1,000-foot view of it, and again, a lot of this stuff is probably pretty controversial to a lot of people.
Yeah, it is, but that's okay.
But I'm just like, if you don't have an ultimate buyer, then you have to convince someone else to be the buyer, which looks a lot to me like, greater fool.
Well, man, but that was how the greenback was established too. It was sold to us,
right. But you had the full faith of the U.S. government if you believed the U.S. government, which, if you don't believe in the U.S. government, you kind of have a lawless land and so forth. And so it feels like, okay, we got bigger problems if the government fails or whatever. But anyway, I think it's a valuable concept. I don't think that the current way that it works is particularly great. And I don't think that the reason it was made.
It kind of depends on how much money you have, because I make money off of Bitcoin. I've never lost money on Bitcoin.
Because someone else is willing to buy it from you.
Absolutely.
As long as someone else is willing to buy it from you, then you can keep making money on it. And that's the problem that I have with it. If somebody stops deciding they want to buy it from you, then it stops being valuable.
So Mr. Kubo, I need you to do me just a small favor because I'm a little left-brained and a little slow. I've been hitting my head too many times over the years of a lifetime, right? Now, I'd like you to just, for our listeners, I really, man, want you to break this down in layman's terms as to the benefits that our community and businesses and anybody else who participates with this in your app. What is the upside? What's the benefits, man? And why should we incentivize our listeners to take part in this?
Yeah, so like I said, essentially at the end of the day, when you use a credit card, a big chunk of the money leaves the community.
Right.
And when you pay with Kuto, it all stays.
You want to keep it in, yeah.
Exactly. And what that means is essentially the businesses, it really changes nothing about their overall
transactional reality. Yeah, right.
reality. It's easier to accept than anything else. But it also, instead of taking that money and sending it out, you just give it to your customer.
Gotcha.
And that customer then has 30 days to come back and in order to redeem that money. And if they don't, then you just keep those.
And that comes back to that business. They come back to the business they received that money. Okay,
yeah,
so that's the reciprocal reality of having people be able to get people to come back more than once to your environment.
It's a loyalty program that costs you literally nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But yet it's making you something.
Yeah. It's if I can get a customer to come back, and again, that's where we started with this idea that we're going to save you a ton of money, and we realized that getting you more customers is just way more valuable.
I can see now.
If I can get you to, if I can get someone to pay with Kuto instead of a Amex or whatever, okay, $100 transactions, I just save $3 or $4. If I can get you to come back, that guy comes back within a month. He just spent another $100, right? So either I save $4 or I make an extra $100 that I wasn't going to make otherwise.
Got you.
So that's what we are focused on now. Is sort of like, okay, let's, instead of sending the money out of the community, let's keep it in the community and let's get that customer, let's get that person who casually stopped by, let's give them a reason to come back.
How long have you been doing this in this community?
We started in 2000 and we started working on this in 2020, in March of 2020, when our travel idea didn't seem like it was going to work.
Okay, so now that the pandemic is not as as damaging, how are you doing? How is the business going?
It's good. It's doing well.
What do you mean that bottom line?
We lose money every day because we don't have it's a volume game, right? We have to get enough people using it. Yeah. But the fundamentals of the technology work, right? So every time someone makes a purchase, there's a very small.
Are you now losing more money than you're making because you're in that process of starting to be established?
Yeah, we lose more money than we make because we have to have people to try and get to the scale that we need to get to.
Yeah.
But you must have a nice thing of money, because if you lose more money than you're getting, you must have a nice, backup.
Reserve.
Nice is relative.
Sure is.
But yeah, we raised venture capital to start this business.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Kubo, do you see other businesses beginning to adopt your plan and your strategy? I mean, are you out in the forefront of this type of technology, or is others adopting it? It's places like Starbucks and all those people who encounter and create these communities, bars, whatever. Are you the sole? So you're the only one holding this game?
I don't think that. So I mean, there are a lot of, like, you can go into businesses right now and you can pay with, like, some of them will allow you to pay with Venmo, for example. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of these guys who will allow you to do that. I think so far the big difference that we have is that we're so focused on essentially cost savings. That's where we started, that we just don't interact with the credit card networks at all. And all the other technologies do, and so they don't really have a choice but to charge the higher fees because credit cards charge them high fees. And so right now we're unique in that way. But I also don't think that this is a winner take all sort of scenario.
Gotcha.
Okay. Right now you have Visa and you have MasterCard and you have checks and you have cash and you have Venmo and you have Square and you have all of these things. And so we see ourselves as a better option.
Right.
Are you a fly-by-night company? Like you have a 5-year plan?
Yeah, I mean, our ultimate goal is to essentially, be a third rail, I guess, like you have the Visa rail and the MasterCard rail and Kuto. So we see ourselves being, just another, not just another, but like an additional payment platform that is, used at millions and millions of.
You plan on being in our community 5 years?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can't.
Well, what's
survive.
wrong with that, man? You made it sound like there's something wrong with it. He was going, what?
No, I'm just trying to get him to commit. To me, he's committed for at least 5 years, because that's the kind of around the time when people are starting to make money. People are starting to be more, comfortable with spending their own money in order to make money. 5 years. So that's why I asked about.
Yeah, I mean, like you had asked earlier, like we are a venture-backed company, so we have to,
You have to plan ahead.
Yeah, we have to plan ahead, and we don't make as much money as we spend today.
But you will make a lot more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if communities find the value, then we will. Ultimately, we only deserve to exist if we're providing a service that people want.
No question.
And if people don't want this, then we don't deserve to exist.
So, Kubo, so in light of that, looking down the road at that, and since you have foresight and vision and perhaps some projected thoughts, you know as well as I do, with prosperity comes some sense of responsibility and obligation. What are some of your other philanthropic causes that your organization supports, and that's beyond just the actual application that you're developing? Are you doing other things with the package?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that we're so excited about, is that we have, when you have one business, and I mean, you guys know this as sort of the district, right?
Yeah.
When you have one individual business all by themselves and they're asking for help, there's 100,000 other businesses all asking for help, right?
Yeah.
But when you combine them all together, you have one entity of 100,000 businesses asking for help. Yeah. And it's it's for the government or for third parties, it's much easier to help that one organization that has 100, like you guys.
Yeah.
And so what we've learned is that by banding together all these businesses within a community, we can ask for help for that whole community and make it really efficient and make it work.
Right on.
Perfect example is in Corvallis. We support an organization called It's On Us. It's On Us is a food insecurity organization, and they were started during the pandemic, and they're going strong. And essentially, the way that organization works is they help people who are food insecure by giving them vouchers to eat in the community. So what they were seeing at the beginning of the pandemic were these lines at McDonald's, and nobody shopping at the local store, which in some cases just had to shut down, right? And so they were like, what if we raised some money and made it so that food insecure individuals could get food and they would get it from the local community. And the way they originally set that up was somewhat complicated, because you had to enroll the businesses, and you had to enroll the consumers, and you had to explain how the whole system worked. And it's pretty complicated when it's sort of a one-off. Like if one person comes in a day and says, I'm paying with this food voucher thing, it can be a little complicated for the people behind the register. And so we teamed up with those guys, and now they just click one button and like hundreds of people get a text message.
Wow.
They claim their Kudo credits, and then they just walk into any one of the restaurants in town and they get paid, and it's very dignified. They don't have to say, hi, I'm here and I'm paying with my food voucher because I'm poor.
Yeah.
Instead they just say, hey, I'm paying on Kudo, and that's it. And
right
so
on, man.
It's a very dignified way to support food insecurity.
Yeah, I think, and you definitely tapped into another interview for sure on the dignity, part about, how people do their transactional things, and then how does those transactions actually make you feel? I mean, God, how many times have I handed money to somebody that I knew didn't like me? That was really not a good experience, man. And not even to talk about the food stamp thing, back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, that set precedence for me. The first time I ever had to go down with one of them things, the piece of paper, I never did it again after that.
Not food stamp, that's food insecurity.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, it's real. Like it's having to pay in a sort of dignified way is, I think, important.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Kubo, I really do appreciate you coming in here and working with us today, man, and sharing with our community a little bit about what this app really is all about, man. And I think that, Jarrell, if I'm not mistaken, I think, as a young man, you see the future with this coming. And what's your take, man? I mean, your thoughts about it?
Yeah, like just hearing about your business model and everything, like had this been around sooner, I think this would have saved a lot of businesses here, like especially during the pandemic, because a lot of businesses closed.
Yeah.
Because of just, lack of customers and then transaction fees and all the payments, and then rent prices were going through the roof like over the past couple years and stuff like that. So this could have really been a huge thing. So I see the value in this and how helpful this can be for this community in particular, and then other communities that you go on to support as well.
The best of us is in front of us, and we're certainly glad you're moving. So, Harrison, what's your take on it? Because I'm going to be coming along. I'll get the Kudo card, but, and if it's going to save us some money, I'll swipe it like I do all these other cards. It's like, what's your thoughts, man?
My take on is to wait and see, to see how it pans out. Even when you use terms like food insecurity, in my neighborhood, if you just simply say, brother hungry, you know what I mean? That makes a whole lot more sense. You tell the brother he's food insecure, he's going to look at you like he's a food. You know what I mean? So simplifying the language for folks a lot of times is important. Because I'm insecure in a lot of ways, but it ain't got nothing to do with no food.
Well, that's...
I got a whole bag of chicken.
What you say, Kubo? That's on him, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, man. Hey.
Look, you look good, man. You shouldn't be insecure.
Yeah, that's the part of insecurity. It always looks good on the outside, but on the inside, it's a little bit.
True.
Hey, look at it. We appreciate you, man, coming in. And this episode of Black Beat. Oh my God! Y'all got to take your time and really listen to what the brother's saying about this card and about this app, and let's everybody begin to really take a look at some of these digital transactional currencies, and really begin to see if those things are really supporting you and your community, keeping the money in your community, keeping it circling, or is it just somebody coming in and giving you something and taking more away? So not this app, but this app stays here with you. It supports you, and if you go back to the business in which you establish it with, you get something in return, and that business gets something in return. So y'all take a hard look at this. I do appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to us, and we out of here for the day. But look here, stay tuned, keep watching for it. And the posse is going to let you know what they thinking about these deals. So anyway, we appreciate you, Mr. Kudo.
Good job.
Come on in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You done?